Sup guys, Bjorn here. Today's just gonna be a short video. I'm gonna go over my thoughts on the AoE cap removal, and I'm gonna talk a little bit of what I think the change implies for WoW, and what I think Blizzard's intention behind the change is, and also some of the classes that are better off maybe after the change, and some of the abilities that were uncapped, and some new builds that you can maybe play. But first, I figured we would just read this together to figure out what Blizzard is actually saying here, because I've seen a lot of people covering this in the community, and a lot of people are very positive about this change. Obviously, right? It's something that we've asked for a long time. But you've also got to keep in mind that Blizzard reverting the AoE cap now doesn't necessarily mean that you're suddenly going to do a ton of damage to big pulls, right? I suspect that Blizzard's intention with removing the AoE cap is simply to create that feel in old raids and dungeons, and that it's not going to be a massive DPS gain for like current content, but we'll figure that out soon. So we'll read the actual note here. So the change, first of all, is that the following area of effect abilities are no longer target capped, right? So instead of being target capped, they just deal reduced damage beyond 5 targets, which is pretty interesting because I'm not sure all of these are like 5 target necessarily. In their target cap, but now they are. So a ton of spells down there. But first, we have the actual blue post, or the actual developer's note with the explanation as to why the change is coming. So with the launch of Shadowlands, we reduced the maximum number of targets that several abilities could hit, specifically to address a few gameplay problems related to pulling a large number of enemies in dungeons. So straight away here, they're just saying that the reason they did the AoE cap was to stop the MDI pools, right? This is what this essentially means here. People good at the game, doing 25Ks, just running in, pulling like 30 mobs and one-tapping them all with all of their cooldowns, right? That's the predominant strategy in Mythic Plus, and it has been ever since it was introduced, because it's simply the fastest way of clearing the dungeon, right? And that's what M Plus is all about. So they wanted to remove that. They wanted to introduce 5 target pools in Shadowlands, Mythic Plus, apparently. As we all know, it didn't work out at all. So players often refer to these changes as the AoE target cap. Our intention was to reduce the effectiveness of burst AoE buttons against large target counts, 15-20 enemies, while also increasing their effectiveness against fewer targets. Yeah, so as I said about the MDI pools, right, they wanted to stop that, but they also wanted to create a niche for some cleave classes to actually be really good at 3 to 5 enemies, which I enjoy, right? Windwalker is very good at those target counts, or maybe not 3, but 5-6 targets is Windwalker's niche, obviously. And it does feel good to have a niche, I won't deny that, but there was just like way too many abilities target capped, in my opinion. The abilities that remained uncapped were generally ones that offered lower damage over a longer period of time. So yeah, Blizzard and Consecration, sure, fair enough, those probably deserve to be uncapped, but you've also got to keep in mind that there were some classes that were uncapped that were still mega broken, like Fire Mage and Elishaman and stuff like that. So along with the other changes, we set out to move away from pull as many enemies as possible, use all your cooldowns and delete them as the predominant strategy across various forms of content. So yeah, they're basically just telling us why they did it. There's nothing in here that insinuates any apology of any kind. They're not really telling us that it went wrong here, yet at least. We've received a lot of feedback that these abilities not hitting enemies in their range in any way creates a feel problem for WoW combat. So, okay, the feedback they're receiving is that it creates a feel problem, not that people can't do damage. For trivial encounters like farming legacy content. For many of the abilities that underwent a change from uncapped to strict target cap in 9.0, we're converting the damage to reduced damage beyond 5 targets. This means that the ability will deal full damage against 5 targets, and then reduce damage to each additional target beyond 5. This means that while the overall damage done by the ability increases with the number of targets, the individual damage done to each target will decrease. This is pretty interesting. This is probably the most technical definition of the change in here, I'm guessing, right? What it actually means for us. This doesn't say a whole lot still. It will deal full damage against 5 targets, very obvious, right? Then reduce damage to each additional target beyond 5. The damage done by the ability will increase by the number of targets, also incredibly obvious, right? But the individual damage done to each target will decrease. This sentence is a little bit interesting here because as I interpret this, I think this means that you're gonna get like a 50% DR on the first target, then you're gonna get like a 75% DR on the second target, and so on and so forth, maybe, or something along those lines. I think that the damage reduction will actually ramp up the more mobs there are, which also means that in like a 20 mob pool in a Mythic Plus dungeon, I don't think the target cap will actually have, or the removal of the target cap will actually have a significant impact on the balance of the keys, because if this is going to be like a 90-95% damage reduction to 8 targets plus or something like that, then it's not going to matter a whole lot that the AoE cap is actually removed, but it is going to matter a whole lot for the feel problem of like old dungeons, because you'll just one-shot everything in there anyway. When you're doing old raids, you just need to group them up and make sure that the ability actually hits all of them, right? Which it can do now with these changes. So that's my personal take on this. I don't think Blizzard intends to switch up the Mythic Plus balance too much with this, or the raid balance too much. I just think that these spells will be really good in old raids now, but I don't think that they will deal a significant amount of more damage to AoE packs in Mythic Plus dungeons. I might be wrong though, and I hope I'm wrong, because personally I think it would be super fun if they remove the AoE cap again. For real, that is, not just like with a 90% DR attached to it, because that is effectively almost the same thing as having an AoE cap, right? So I am excited, but I'm wary, and I advise you guys to be a little wary as well. Don't think you're gonna be able to go out there and just one-shot everything with your bursting source or non-holy, or that you're gonna do one blade dance with first blood and do like it, or not with first blood, with the new conduit maybe, or with Trail of Ruin, you know, doing a ton of AoE damage. I don't think that is gonna happen, guys. And at the very end, I figured I would just touch on the classes that are most positively affected by this, right? Some big winners, I think, are Hunters, first of all. Hunters get a ton of spells across all 3 specs uncapped. And it's just going to feel amazing in old raids for Hunters. But also just in dungeons, I think this is actually going to feel pretty nice for Hunters. Similarly with DKs. DKs don't like being target capped. It doesn't feel great on DKs, I don't think. So having all of these things uncapped again is amazing. Havoc is a minor thing because you don't really play Fell Barrage, right? And Blade Dance isn't used, but with the new Fell Dance conduit buff down here, Dancing with Fate effect increased by 650%. Suddenly, Blade Dance with that conduit might actually be a really good Mythic Plus build with like First Blood and stuff. So Blade Dance being uncapped might actually have some balance implications here. So I'm pretty hyped about that. Brutal Slash is just a nice quality of life thing. Rogues also getting pretty touched up here. You know, all of the sub and assas AoE and with Fan of Knives and Shuriken Storm is now uncapped. Feels really nice as a rogue, I bet, to not just hit 5 targets with those spells, because those are really some nice AoE spells right there. So I don't know. And yeah, Arms, Fury, some warrior changes, but otherwise nothing insane here. Paladin Divine Storm also is gonna feel pretty nice, obviously, and similar stuff for the other classes. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think the target cap is gonna be about. Do you think we're gonna do massive damage all of a sudden, or is it gonna be more of an old raids thing? Let me know in the comments what you think, and subscribe if you want more content like this. I'll be releasing some longer, more in-depth videos soon about alts, about gearing, about stuff like that, more interesting stuff. I just figured I'd get some reactions video out of the way, because they're really easy to film, and when I don't have a lot of motivation to record, these are often the most easy videos to actually get done. So I hope you stick with me for that, but there will be more content coming up soon, guys. Stay tuned, see ya.